Hello everyone, my name is Julie Nguyen. In this presentation, we will address how African Americans are misrepresented in media, historical misinformation, cultural traditions/religion, and what the current demographic is. Knowing these factors will allow us to learn ways to incorporate African American history into the classroom and discuss Black figures who have impacted the world today. Although there is more Black representation in television today, their portrayals often involve stereotypical roles. According to OxfordERE.com, Black individuals are casted as villains far more than white individuals, with Black women shown with Eurocentric features and Black men depicted as unemployed. As for online news, there is minimal coverage when it comes to images and headlines, but overrepresentation in association with poverty and criminal suspects. Interestingly enough, there is more representation of Black individuals in video games, but they are often depicted as athletic or violent. In comparison, Black women are underrepresented and are almost always completely absent from video game covers. Politicians are public figures that have conveyed negative messages about African American individuals, specifically using racist rhetoric and stereotypes for political gain. In a New York Times column, Charles M. Blow called attention to the anti-Black rhetoric that Republicans such as Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum used during their presidential candidacies back in 2012 and 2016. In his column, he refutes the fallacy that they both endorsed, which was that African Americans preferred to rely on government aid than to work. As for educational systems, EraseRacismNY.org explains that the disparities in educational resources and opportunities can indirectly convey a social message which suggests that African American students are less capable and likely to succeed academically. One of the more infamous religious leaders to speak on African American issues was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As a Baptist minister and prominent leader during the Civil Rights Movement, Martin Luther King advocated for societal change and equality for all people. He used his platform to emphasize the injustices Black individuals face despite the mirage of equality and freedom. One of the most damaging attributions given to African Americans is that Black men are violent and criminals. Gister.org and OpportunityAgenda.org explain that this stereotype has deep historical roots that have been perpetuated through various forms of media over time. In fact, a study published in the Journal of African American Studies recognized that these portrayals contributed to the societal perception that Black men are dangerous. Such ideas lead to implicit biases that affect the criminal justice system. For instance, research found by the Opportunity Agenda indicates that in instances of the same crime, Black men are more likely to be sentenced to death compared to white men. Not only do these attributes affect a larger system within society, but they also have everyday implications. This leads to the welfare queen stereotype, which paints Black women as lazy. Popularized in the 1980s, it depicted Black women as dependent on government assistance, when in fact, studies discussed in NPR.org say that white individuals have historically been the majority of welfare recipients. Depictions like this result in Black women being seen as less hardworking, leading to further obstacles and fewer opportunities, as well as promotions in the workplace.
Hi everyone, my name is Sabina Sanchez and I will be talking about historical misinformation in African American history. Misinformation include myths, stereotypes, and the omission of key events and contributions. Addressing this misinformation is essential for historical accuracy, social justice, and ensuring the future generation to learn more. Some myths and stereotypes is that the civil rights movement ended racism. The reality is that we know that the systematic inequalities still persisted in education, economic opportunities for African American, policies like redlining, which prevented African Americans from buying a home, and voter suppression continue to affect Black communities. The erasure of Black achievements is the reality is that African Americans have played a significant role in contributing to fields like science, technology, arts, and politics, but are often omitted from mainstream history books. The picture down here with the three women, they are the ones that helped out a lot in NASA. They made a movie called Hidden Figures from them. Another one is that slavery happened a long time ago, so it doesn't impact African Americans today. The reality is that the effects of slavery and systematic racism continue to shape wealth, education, and healthcare and housing opportunities for African Americans. Poverty and discriminatory policies like redlining and segregation still lasted in consequences. The picture here, we can see the segregation of white and color. Current statistics and research show that African American communities still face disappropriate disadvantages due to historical misinformation and systematic racism. The wealth gap between Black and white families that still impact today, which the chart here is from 2015. I know it's not recent, but you can see that even with a white person with less than a high school degree got paid more than a Black person, even though they both did not have a high school degree. And even the advanced degree, a white person got paid more than a Black person. So you can see the wage difference. In 2020, there was a report by the Brookings Institution found that the median wealth of white families was nearly 10 times more than the Black families due to historical injustice. Past and present struggles, education, that is still a struggle, especially in a predominantly Black neighborhood. They receive less funding than a white neighborhood, leading to unequal access to quality education. Sometimes those schools don't have enough funds to provide books, even internet or computers for the students to learn. Mass incarceration is policies like the war on drugs target Black communities and how African Americans are more likely to be arrested or accused of violations. The job market discrimination, as I showed the chart before, show how African American often face hiring discrimination and the wage gaps, despite similar qualifications compared to those that are white. Why is this important to awareness? Teaching a full and accurate history fosters understanding and inclusivity. African American history should not be limited to just Black History Month, but integrated into general all year long, because all year long history. Teaching history through an inclusive lens help children develop empathy and critical thinking skills, and they learn about the history. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayla, and today I'm going to be discussing the cultural traditions within the African American community. To begin, Black History Month, which is typically celebrated from February 1st until March 1st, of course yearly, is a month dedicated to Black history. And a common misconception within this tradition is that teaching Black history is only meant to inform and empower Black students. This is completely false, and Black History Month is actually meant to inform and empower everyone, especially communities that may be facing similar challenges to the African American community. But overall, Black History Month is supposed to educate everyone on things that are going on in the community and, of course, the history within the community. Next is Juneteenth, which is typically celebrated on June 19th, and a common misconception is that Juneteenth marks the end of slavery. This is not accurate. It marks the announcement of the Emancipation Proclamation, which didn't necessarily end slavery right then and there, but the Emancipation Proclamation was kind of a start to the end of slavery. So it's definitely important to make sure we have that distinction. Next is the use of AAVE, or African American Vernacular English. A common misconception is that this is broken English or slang, but it actually is its own dialect rooted in Black history. It contains its own grammatical and vocabulary rules, as well as accent features, which allows it to be its own dialect. Another common cultural tradition is the use of certain hairstyles, such as afros, dreadlocks, cornrows, or box braids. A common misconception with these hairstyles is that it is unprofessional. This is obviously a misconception that is rooted in racism and discrimination, and is very important for us to recognize as false. None of these hairstyles are unprofessional by any means, and as teachers and just as people in general, it is very important for us to understand that this is a misconception. But overall, all these traditions are important for us to recognize within a classroom setting because it does allow for inclusivity, diversity, and cultural competency. Teachers should not only be knowledgeable on these things, but provide time to ensure that their students are knowledgeable as well. Next, I'll be discussing local communities, museums, or organizations that represent the African American community. So the first one is the California African American Museum, which this museum focuses on the education and enrichment of Black culture with an emphasis on California and Western U.S. Next is the African American Community Service Agency, which aims to preserve the dignity and culture of the African American community. Next is the Museum of African American Art in LA, and their aim is to connect people with African American culture through art. And lastly is the 100 Black Men of Orange County, or the 100 Black Men nonprofit organization just as a whole. So this nonprofit organization is dedicated to improving the quality life of African Americans through mentorship, empowerment, and education.
Hello, my name is Roslyn Sanchez, and I'm going to be presenting about the current demographic area within African Americans. Starting off with graduation and dropout rates. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, in the year of 2020 to 2021, 79% of African American students graduated. The dropout percentage was approximately 6.4%. This data is important for educators as it shows the advancements in graduation rates among students and emphasizes the importance of using culturally sensitive teaching methods to better assist various student groups and promote cross-cultural understanding. School discipline statistics. In Broward County, Florida, during 2022 through 2024, Black students experienced an incident rate of 18% with a suspension rate of 13%. This data shows that there are differences in how disciplines implemented in schools and suggests that teachers should work on developing practices that are culturally sensitive and address any biases they may have to ensure fair and inclusive learning spaces. Incarceration data. In 2020, the United States prison system of African Americans made up 33% of those serving sentences, despite accounting for 13% of the population. Understanding the statistics on school discipline is crucial for future teachers to tackle disparities and establish a nurturing atmosphere for every student. Poverty and homelessness statistics. In 2024, African Americans made up a portion of the population in the United States at 31.6%, even though they account for only about 13.7% of the total population. This difference highlights the seated problems linked to poverty, housing insecurity, and biases that have an impact on African American neighborhoods. Teachers must grasp these figures as they reveal the hurdles that numerous African American students might encounter. When teachers have an understanding of the factors that lead to homelessness and poverty within their communities, it enables them to establish a supportive classroom atmosphere. This knowledgeable empowers educators to show compassion and insight in order to adapt their teaching approaches and assistance programs to effectively serve the requirements of every student who are facing these challenges related to these matters. By promoting a feeling of inclusion and offering support resources, instructors can serve as guides in aiding students in conquering barriers and achieving success regardless of their circumstances. And here are my citations that I used. Thank you for hearing my presentation about current demographic areas within African Americans.
Hello everyone, my name is Yanira Hinojosa. For those of us who are planning on being teachers, this is important to know because creating an inclusive and culturally responsive classroom means incorporating African American history and culture throughout the year, not just during Black History Month. This is important because stories like A Right to Remember help children understand the civil rights movement, while Lillian's Right to Vote teaches about social injustice and the hard-fought battle for voting rights. Educators can incorporate lessons about civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. A short YouTube video of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech is a great way for students to learn about this motivational and famous speech, while older children ages 12 to 17 can read a biography about Rosa Parks to gain deeper insights into the civil rights movement. This biography can be read as a whole class and be open for discussion. Current events like the Black Lives Matter movement also provide important learning opportunities for middle and high school students. Black Lives Matter is an international human rights movement originating in the African American community that campaigns against violence and systematic racism toward Black people. The article Teaching in Solidarity from Learning from Justice is a good lesson plan that discusses how educators can incorporate the principles of the Black Lives Matter movement into their teaching practices to create more equitable classrooms. It describes the origins and growth of the Black Lives Matter and aims to support African American students and address systematic issues within schools. This information is important to develop cultural competence because movements like Black Lives Matter provide opportunities for middle and high school students to examine systematic racism and social justice. Learning styles for African American students. Social norms for learning styles among African Americans are influenced by cultural values, historical experience, and societal expectations. While learning styles vary among individuals, research suggests that African American students often thrive in educational environments that incorporate the following: visual learning with maps, timelines, and videos, auditory learning through speeches, debates, and music, social learning with group projects and discussions, kinesthetic learning through hands-on activities and field trips. For those of us who are planning on being teachers, this is important to know because making classrooms inclusive ensures that all students feel seen, heard, and valued. As future educators, let's commit to teaching African American history and culture every day, not just 1 month a year. Here are a few children's book recommendations that teaches children about social justice and African American history and culture. Here are a few examples of virtual field trips and local places to visit. The California African American Museum, located in Exposition Park in LA, is dedicated to preserving and showcasing the art, history, and culture of African Americans. The Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture is a virtual museum and is one of the most popular museums in Washington, D.C. The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History is also a virtual museum that is located in Detroit's Midtown Cultural Center.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Dominguez, and today I will be talking about the influential contributors. Lewis Howard Latimer. Latimer was a Black inventor who is most notably known for significant contributions to the development of the electric light bulb and telephone. He also invented durable carbon filament for these light bulbs and invented the early air conditioning units. Dr. Patricia Bath. Dr. Bath was the first African American woman to receive a medical patent. She is notably known for inventing the laser phaco probe that changed her cataract surgery, restoring sight to millions across the world. Also, she was a huge advocate for fair healthcare access for everyone. Bayard Rustin. Rustin was a key organizer and strategist in the civil rights movement. He is most notably known for the planning of the 1963 March on Washington, where the I Had a Dream speech took place. He also introduced nonviolent strategies into the movement during this time. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Tharp was a gospel and rock musician. She was named the godmother of rock and roll because of her amazing electric guitar playing and left a huge influence on other artists such as Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Chuck Berry. Marie Van Britten Brown. Brown was notably important because of her influence of creating a safe society with the invention of the first home security system in 1966. This invention had a camera, two-way communication, and a remotely controlled door lock that we see in today's world still used. Charles Drew. Drew was a surgeon and a medical researcher who had a groundbreaking method for storing and preserving blood plasma, leading to the first creation of the large-scale blood banks. He was known as the father of the blood bank because he helped to save thousands of lives during World War II because of his practices. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer Portillo, and today I'm going to be talking about our African American infographic handout. First, I want to talk about teaching styles, which is very diverse, and there is not one student that is going to learn like the other. However, research shows that African American students effectively learn kinesthetically, which means they like to really work with objects and they love being face to face with other students and teachers. Some resources for educators, which write these down because they will be very handy, is Teaching for Black Lives. This is a book that can really help you with the essentials of teaching and how you can modify your classroom, your teaching style to being more comfortable for a Black student. On the right, we have this book, which I think could be very useful for a kindergarten classroom. It's very simple. The message is right there. On the other hand, this book can be very useful for older grades, such as 8th, 7th, 6th. Something else I want to add is that, of course, everyone's values are different. These are not the only days where you should be incorporating African American history and culture. It talks about real life stories that the author experienced, and it is very realistic. But it's important to pay attention to them. Here are some resources for African American communities, such as mental health for the men, mental health for the women, and also for Black people in the LGBTQ plus community. Local places to visit: the African American Firefighter Museum. Great for the little ones who are figuring out what they want to be when they grow up and hearing about the bravery of African American firefighters inspire them to become a firefighter. It also shows them that you can become anything that you want to become. It's also important to encourage students to express themselves in the classroom, whether it be music, language, because these things come from history and it shows us who they are. It is important for us to educate ourselves in African American culture and history because, as seen frequently in media, it tends to blur the reality of certain things, and especially the African American community. So, educating ourselves in the history and the empowerment can encourage us to appreciate their unique traditions, their bravery, and their values/culture. We have to work hard in looking for activities and resources that give a sense of community building and also effective learning. So get to know your Black students.